Hello, hello. Welcome to my channel. Let me just put this music up a minute. Let's just vibe to the tunes for a moment. Crank that volume up. There we go.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah. Do. Welcome. I'm SpookyLith. This is my channel. And today, let's just let that vibe for a minute. Do. Yeah. As we're feeling it. Here we are. Let's get that music quiet now. Welcome to my channel. Today, on SpookyLith, we're going to be talking about something that hits home for a lot of us these days, because let's face it, a lot of us have in our lives, whether we're happy about it, whether it upsets us, a lot of us are now dealing with this issue. It should be obvious by what's on screen. In some way, shape or form in our lives, it's affecting us, and that is the LGBT plus community. And I've forgotten the plus in my search because, faffing with the shift key and whatever. But we'll get that up because there's many more colours to this rainbow, and it seems to just ever be growing. Day in and day out, it just seems like the rainbow gets bigger and bigger, and more colours are being added to the rainbow. So, welcome to my LGBT people. Welcome to my conservatives who maybe are not interested, maybe are against LGBT. We welcome everybody here. Thank you for being here, and let's get into it. So, the LGBT community, a very spicy subject, a very spicy topic. On one hand, we have our hard left-leaning LGBTQRSTUV people who don't miss a single letter. Everyone's included. They're asking you up front, what do you want to be referred to as? They're asking for pronouns. They're trying to get it right, holding events, and they are all in on the LGBT community. And welcome to those people. And then on the other side, in the other corner, we have our hard-nosed hell-nos. We have our rainbows and our hell-nos. And on the right, we've got those people who, they don't care what you identify as. They don't care who, what, where, when, and why. They just hate it. They hate the whole thing. So, welcome to both sides here. So, what is it we're going to be talking about today? Well, the first thing that comes to my mind... No, you know what, let's ease into this subject, because it's a big one and it's something we're going to be revisiting a lot, because it's huge and it covers a lot of stuff, especially politically, but it also, boots on the ground, it affects us too. Now, as we know, recently there was an incident at an LGBT event and some people were killed, and moment of silence for those people. Turn the music down. Moment of silence.
Beautiful.
Rest in peace to those people who lost their lives for a ridiculous reason. For a terrible reason. You should be allowed to be who you are, dress how you want, behave the way you want, as long as you're not hurting anyone, physically, as long as you're not breaching on anybody else's rights. You should be able to be anybody you want to be without having to worry about potentially being murdered by some idiot who thinks they have a right to tell you how you should live your life. So, right off the bat, rest in peace to those people who lost their lives for a really ridiculous reason. And that's part of the reason why we're going to do this video today. Speaking on the LGBT community, plus everybody else, right? So, why? Why? And I'm asking both sides of the spectrum here. Did those people need to die? And why does anybody in the world need to die just because they're flying the rainbow colours? Why? Someone right now, comment to me below, before I even continue speaking, right now, get in those comments and you tell me why any of those people needed to die. First of all, answer me that. Secondly, Qatar. Now, I can't believe that event, the World Cup, is even happening right now in that country. I can't even, there's so much I could say about that. I can't even believe that event's happening. I can't believe the footballers turned up, or the soccer players if you're American. I can't believe they turned up. I can't believe the media's there. I can't believe there's people in the audience. I don't know how that event's happening. Not only have they banned LGBT people, but they've banned Jewish people. Come on, people. They've banned an entire race and religion. And the event has still continued. Anyway, whatever. I don't know how that event is happening. We all, in our lives, have had to face and deal with, in some way, shape or form, people of the LGBT communities, plus, and also, many of us have people directly in our lives, in our families, that are part of the LGBT plus community. And I don't care which side of the spectrum you fall on. Are you telling me that whoever the fuck your son or daughter wants to sleep with is enough to make you disown them? You have issues, my friend. You should not care who your child is fucking, ever. It should never be of a concern to you, as long as they're not being treated violently or being like robbed in some way, right? As long as some crime or some breach of their rights isn't occurring, which generally is a crime anyway, then it should not matter to you at all who they are fucking sleeping with, dating, etc. Because my apologies to the asexuals, you guys matter too. It does not matter who your family member is seeing. It should never matter to you. You should love your family no matter what, unconditionally. And the fact that there's people out there that don't is sad, because it just shouldn't matter to you, should it? It just shouldn't matter. Whoever you want to sleep with them. On high key, low key, left key, right key. If you want to sleep or date or be with or engage with any individual, it should not matter, as long as your rights and your safety is not being breached and violated. So I just wanted to make that point, because I feel like it's obvious, right? That should be obvious to everybody. It should not matter who your family member is seeing or dating, as long as no one's getting robbed or treated violently or having their rights denied. It really shouldn't matter. If you're on the right side and you're against the LGBT thing, and let's say you have a son or a daughter and they're cis, straight, they're a female, male, I know people hate those terms. They're a woman, or they're a her and they're dating a he, or if they're a he and they're dating a her, does it matter to you who they are? Probably not. They're dating somebody. You don't really get a say in that. And if you'll probably find that if you try and have a say in it, you're going to just piss them off, right? But if your child is straight and you're cis and they're dating someone who's straight and cis, you probably don't care, right? You only seem to care when it's different, when they're not cis and when they're not straight, and then you suddenly care about who they're seeing. What's the difference? The same way that they're fucking, your daughter is getting plowed by some bloke, would be the same if she was getting plowed by some woman, some girl. I hate all these words. It's just a mess in it. But the same way they're getting plowed no matter who it's with. It should never have concerned you in the first place, right? Simple. But I want grandkids. You can't get grandkids if you're LGBT. Does your daughter want kids? Because if she's like lesbian or bi or something, she's probably not fussed about having kids. And you wanting grandkids has absolutely fuck all to do with her. She can be straight, she can be gay, he can be straight, he can be gay. You wanting grandkids and them wanting kids don't go hand in hand. You want grandkids, good for you. And this is just something that you just see a lot, You see a lot of that level of ignorance where a grown adult thinks that they should have some say in what another grown adult does or doesn't do in the bedroom, or who they're dating, or whether they reproduce. And it makes no sense. Imagine walking into your neighbour's house and being like, who are you fucking? It'd be really weird, wouldn't it? It'd be really, really strange, and your neighbour probably would have every right to kick you the hell out of their house and tell you to mind your own damn business. What's the difference just because it's a family member? There should be none. It shouldn't matter to you. You sleep with and you date who you want to sleep with and who you want to date, and let others do the same. Now, if they come into your living room, if your neighbour walks into your house and it's a cis male, and he's gay, and he brings a guy with him and starts fucking ramming him on your dining table, you also have every right to get pissed off. But if that isn't happening, then it's got fuck all to do with you. Simple, right? So let's just get that established. There's never a situation where it's okay for one adult to tell another adult, fucking hell. There's never a situation where it's okay for one adult to tell another adult who they should be sleeping with, as long as everything's legal. If it's like, well, it's not even about legality as much as it's about, as long as it's not a fucking child, right? As long as it's an adult and an adult, then another adult has no business telling those adults what they should be doing. Simple. I know in some countries, being homosexual is illegal, so we can't even use that as a reference, because that's the same problem. That's adults telling other adults what adults they can and can't sleep with, and it's ridiculous. The only laws around sexuality that make sense are rape laws, which child stuff falls under rape. Rape laws, indecency, public exposure and stuff, and just sex pest stuff in general, right? That's fine, because you're infringing on another person's safety, essentially. More or less. I mean, indecency is less about safety in a way, and more just about general decency. Like, don't show your cock out in the streets, because nobody wants to see it. And that's all well and good. Because, you know what? Just on indecency laws, they're not as strict as people might like to think they are too. Like in the UK, you're allowed to be naked in public as long as you did it in a place that wasn't like a main street. And most people don't know that. But you can go out in public and be naked, and you just can't do it in a highly populated area. And that's just for courtesy reasons, right? We're a very polite country. But the only sex laws that make sense are rape laws. And I guess indecency is a form of rape too, because it's sexual contact without consent. And the child stuff, which all goes under rape. Excuse me. And obviously decency laws. But other than that, adults should not be telling other adults what to do in the privacy of their homes, in their bedrooms, wherever they're doing it, as long as they're doing it safely and privately, and everyone's got consent. And I feel like that's just a very basic fact and something that we all can easily acknowledge. So yeah, I'm back. Just took a short break. I have to go do something. LGBT plus. Now, when we're talking about the law, I want to make this point that I am 100% in favour of child safety laws. I think, protecting kids from this kind of thing is important. From sexuality, over-sexualized content and media, and just in general. Keeping kids safe is very, very, very important. And we should double down even more on those laws. Because there are some countries... I mean, let me just pause this video a second and look something up. Sorry about that. So now that was instant for you, but there was a short pause for me. I was just looking something up because I'm going to talk about Qatar. And I was just wondering, because they've criminalised homosexuality, and I believe it's punishable by execution if you're a Muslim in that country and you engage in homosexuality, one thing that's really interesting about that country and others like it is that their age of consent when it comes to sexuality laws are ridiculous. They've outlawed homosexuality to the point of execution, but they've also outlawed sex outside of marriage, fine. But then they have no limit on the age a person can get married in their country, meaning a 12-year-old can get married to an adult, 30-odd-year-old, 50-odd-year-old, and engage in sex legally, but it's illegal to have homosexual sex. So, that's a headache. They've outlawed being Jewish, but it's okay to engage in sexual practices with a fucking minor as long as you're married to them. And it's okay to marry a minor. So, globally, the age of consent when it comes to sexuality is all over the place, as we know. I'm from the UK. Our age of consent is 16. And I think that's... I would prefer to go with 18. I think 18 is a good number to say, right, you've done with your teenage years, you're pretty much over it. Maybe even 21 if you want to be super conservative about it. But I think 18 is a good number. No one's going to stop two 15-year-olds from dating each other. We're all adults, people are going to date. But I also respect a parent's rights, because this is what I'm kind of getting at. If your child is below the age of 18, or in the UK 16, then I think it's reasonable, acceptable, and okay to kind of police their dating life, so to speak. Because they're below the age of consent, because they are minors, parents are supposed to take an active role in a minor's life and ensure their safety. So if you want to restrict the sexuality, I shouldn't even, those two words, I'm not even going to say that because those words should not go together. So if you want to police your child's dating activities, I think that's perfectly okay. It's a very different conversation. We are talking about adults. We're talking about adults, and I think that's where we should stick with, is legal adults. So yeah, child safety laws, I'm all for it, and I do think parents should have a say in their child's dating life. I don't think they should be able to tell their child whether they should be straight, gay, whatever else, and we'll get onto the trans stuff soon. But I do think parents should, they should be able to stop their child from dating. You're not going to win any favours with the child. They're probably going to be very resentful if you do it. And nobody wants to have a child grow up and be resentful to its parent. But I do think parents should have the right to police their minors' dating life because they are minors and legally shouldn't be engaging in that kind of thing in the first place. So I'm okay with that. So the Conservatives have got that part right. If you are raising a minor, you should be taking an active role in their goings-ons. But it's not that simple. Young people will be young people. Things happen. And that's where parental discretion comes into it. But if it's a minor, the parents have the final say on the goings-ons of a minor. So we're going to focus mainly on adults here, but we are going to talk about transgendered minors too. But we'll get to that. We'll get to the trans stuff in a moment. Because I do feel like, the lesbian, the gay, the bi, and some of the other letters is something that in like the UK and in America is kind of well established and is a lot more accepted than the trans stuff. And I do think the trans stuff is more the hot topic of the moment and is something that really does need to be addressed, especially from someone who has a perspective like mine that you may never have even heard before. But with the LGB, yes, police the minors. You are a parent. It is your responsibility until they become old enough to take over their own consent, which is, 18 in some places, 16 in others. And I think that's okay. But don't be expecting to win any favours with your youth if you are dictating that stuff to them. Because most young people, as we remember ourselves being young, want to be themselves as unimpeded on as possible, right? But yeah, child safety is important. Sexual laws regarding rape and indecency are important because nobody wants to be exposed to sexuality without consent. If I don't consent to it, I don't want to see you junk. I don't want to see you having sex. I don't want to engage in sexual acts with you if I don't want to. And you should have no rights whatsoever to make me or, any other person a part of your sex life. And that's what indecent exposure is. When you flash your cock to a person, you're forcing them to engage in a sexual gratification, in sexual acts, in sexual gratification with you against their will. So I feel like we can all agree those laws make perfect sense. And the child laws makes perfect sense. Parents, police your minors, be responsible parents, be understanding parents too, be considerate parents, understand it's not that simple, we were all young, we've all been there, but yes, do take an active role in your minors' safety. I think that's fair enough. So, one moment. So, skipping ahead a bit now. Again, an adult has no business being involved or having any say in the goings-on of another adult's life. And I think that covers pretty much everything. But when it comes to lesbian, gay, bi, it's none of your business. Yes, you may walk down the street in a public place and witness 2 women, 2 men, 3 women, 5 men, and 2 cats. I'm just kidding because we have animal laws. But you might witness some stuff happen in the centre where you see a LGBT couple hugging, kissing, holding hands. And yes, you are in a public area. You have the same rights they have, just as you have the right to hold your partner's hand and kiss your partner and hug your partner. They do too, and you have no business telling them that they can't do that in a public setting, as long as they're not actually engaging in sexual indecency, which a hug, a handhold, a peck, Even a French kiss, I think, is legal. So if that's what you see, it's none of your business. They have every legal right to be there doing that. They have the right to do that, and you have no right telling them not to. So get over it. You may see two men kissing, you may see two women kissing, you may see a group of them doing it. It's none of your business, as long as they're not naked and fucking right in front of you. But if they are fucking, get the police called, because that's illegal, and you have every right to be pissed at that, because they're involving you in a sex act you want nothing to do with. But a gay couple, holding hands, pecking, hugging, being romantic, nothing to do with you, deal with it. However, I do also feel, especially in the UK, we do have a culture of, privacy, and there's nothing wrong with seeing that and thinking, get a room, because people will often say that. But that applies to straight couples too. Oftentimes you'll see a straight couple doing the same thing and you'll be like, oh, bloody get out of here, No one really wants to see that shit when you're out on town, but legally and by, as far as their rights are concerned, they have a right to that, and you have no right to tell them otherwise. Get used to it. There are gay couples. There've always been gay couples for as long as there's been people. Deal with it. Now, transgenders. The real reason we all came here. Because when people say LGBT, no one cares anymore about the LGBs in the Western cultures. Taking us back to the Middle East and Qatar, I cannot believe there is a World Cup being held right now, considering how deeply rooted LGBT is into our Western culture. We've seen the famous tweet, the Qatari saying, you must respect my culture of not respecting your culture. And it's mind-numbing, it's daft, it's insulting to our intelligence. Because we have a culture of tolerance and they have a culture of intolerance, and they want us to tolerate their intolerance. Hell no. No. Anyway, let's stick to the West for a bit. LGB in the West is well established, and some of these people who are so vocally against it, I've been caught out many times engaging in this stuff secretly, and they're only doing it for the political clout because they're trying to attract those voters that are hard-nosed about this stuff, and that's whatever, right? That's just whatever. LGB, widely accepted. However, the T's, shout out to my T's out there, because you guys are not accepted anywhere near the level that you should be. And there's a lot of reasons why, and we're going to get into some of those now. So the first thing I'm going to say, just to bring the conversation back to the people on the other side of the spectrum here, is if someone came up to me in the street and said, you must call me this, I'm going to laugh and go, get the hell out of my face. I don't have to call you anything. As long as because in the UK we have hate crime laws, and if I call someone some kind of a racial slur, if I discriminate against them because of some of these traits and I refuse to whatever with them, right? By all means, that's a hate crime. However, if you tell me that I must call you this thing, I'm going to tell you to get the hell out of my face. You have no right to make me call you anything. If you're a cis woman and you're wearing just cis woman clothes, whatever those might bloody be, but let's just, just to keep it simple, let's say that's the case, and your name's Mary, and I say, what's up, dude? It's just tough luck, isn't it? There's no laws, there's no hate crime, there's no discrimination. It's just a slightly gendered word. And if I want to call you dude, you just have to deal with that. Tough. Tough. But more importantly, if you, as that woman, came up to me and said, you must call me he, I'm going to be like, okay, right? And then I'm probably going to end up calling you a she. I'm probably going to end up calling you a bunch of things. Tough luck. You have no right to make me call you anything, but you do have the right for me not to call you something. So if I call you a slur, that's a hate crime. But if I don't call you he when you've asked me to, that's not a hate crime. That's tough luck. That's tough shit. If I call you a fucking idiot, if I call you a fucking knobhead, tough. You have no right to make me call you anything as long as it's not a hate crime, which is defined as racially motivated, whatever, right? There's some rules behind it which, don't need to get into. The long story short, you can't make me call you anything. If your name's Sue, and you say my name's Sue, and I call you Linda, tough. Just tough. You can't make me use your name. You can't make me call you anything. More importantly, I'm going to tell you to get out of my face and leave me alone. I have every right to do that. You legally have to listen to that. If I say go away, leave me alone, the legal onus is on you to walk away and not to continue harassing me because I've asked you to leave. You now must leave. So if you come up and say, you must call me he, and I say, get out of my face, leave me alone, go away, the legal onus is on you to leave, not me. So I think that's important, and I think that's a point on the right-hand side, which is that you have no legal bearings to make me call you anything. Now, if you're an associate and you say, oh, I'm transitioning, I want to be referred to as a he, I need to send a text message. I'm going to pause the video really quick. Hold that thought. Sorry for that short pause. I had to just send this text message. And it could have waited till after the recording, but I just... when you don't want to lose your trains of thoughts. So yeah, your name's Sue, I call you Mary, tough shit. You have no say in that. And that's the point on the right side, because you just don't have a right to do that. But yeah, if you have an associate and they say, I no longer want to be referred to as a she, I want to be referred to as a he, and I'd appreciate if you respected that, fine. That's up to me to go, okay, I respect this person. They're an associate. I'll respect their wishes and try my best to remember that they no longer want to be referred to as a she. They are now a he. And that's my discretion to do that. That's my discretion to respect that. If I don't like it, I can then voice that and say, look, I'm not comfortable doing that. Are you okay if I still continue to call you a she? Because I'm not comfortable calling you a he. And if they say no, that's up to them. That might be the end of the relationship. And if they say no, it's okay, then all is well and good, right? But you have no legal right, nothing whatsoever that says I have to refer to you as anything. If I choose to, then I choose to. If not, then not. Sorry, my text got a reply, so give me another moment. Yeah, I'm back. Sorry about that. So yeah, just, because, alright, so now this doesn't really apply to Americans because they have freedom of speech, so, it works differently. But in the UK, there is a time where that can become a hate crime, which is to say, things like refusal of service or intentionally antagonizing someone. It's a grey area legally because you still have a burden of proof. But if I can prove that you was mislabeling me purposely to antagonize me, and I can prove that, then I do have that legal precedence to say, no, he's doing this as a hate crime. But really, it'd be something that's so difficult to prove, and the burden of proof is on you to prove that it was a hate crime. And more often than not, there's not really any legal backing for it. If you're identifying as a she, and you get called a he, as often happens to trans people, there is nothing you can do. And this is the thing that I have to look to my people on the left and say, look guys, you don't get to tell people what they get to call you. You can tell them not to use slurs. Now, I don't know any slurs for trans people, actually. I'm going to go quickly Google some, so give me a sec. So, yeah, I just had a quick Google, and honestly, I couldn't really find any actual slurs. There's like one that we all know, but I know people that use that for themselves as a normal name. So I think it's 50-50 as to whether that's even a slur. But there, I can't find any specific slurs about trans people, but there are slurs against LGBT people in general. There's the F word, for example, and saying that in the UK to someone can be considered a hate crime. But saying I don't like gay people isn't a hate crime. So there's some nuance there, right? But the most important aspect I'm trying to get at here is, and I think this is so important to both sides to understand this concept, is nobody has the right to tell you that you have to then call them or treat them a certain way other than lawfully. I can't punch you in the face, but I can tell you to go fuck yourself. Get what I mean? There's some nuance there, right? And you can tell me you want to be called a he, she, or a they. I don't have to do that. And that's what the left has to accept. And to start getting into the world where you can tell people they have to call you a certain thing is a world I don't want to live in, because just like in my political video, I mentioned you got to bring these ideas to your own living room. And it's all well and good saying, oh, they have to call me this. But then what happens when they want to be called something you don't want to call them? You're not legally obligated to do it. I want to be called King Grand Poober of the whole, and you legally have to call me that. That's a ridiculous world. No one wants to live in that world. So I've got to accept that. I can't make them call me he, she, or they, just like they can't make me call them King Grand Poober of the abyss, right? There's no legal precedence to do that. So it's tough luck. Yes, they have no legal obligation to call you a she if they don't want to. It sucks for your inner sensitivity. It sucks for your emotional and mental state, especially with the struggles associated with a transition. However, it's kind of just a tough break. You have no legal precedence to make them call you anything. And I think we've got to be honest about that. We've got to stop trying to force people to call us things, because it sets a precedent none of us want. Just like on the other side, with the right-wing side, they don't want to hear about trans people, but to limit the conversation on trans is to limit the conversation on everything. And they want to talk about some stuff, or you want to talk about some stuff, and you start limiting what they can say, that's also going to limit what you can say, just in reverse. So we've got to be very careful when we're trying to limit something we don't like, that it's not too big of an umbrella that it limits things that we do like. So no, you can't make people call you a he, she, or a they if they don't want to, and I think that's fair. I think that's fair, because I don't want to call them Grand Poober of the sunshine. I don't. And if I force them to call me something, I'm forced to call them something, and I don't want to. So let's just get that out the way. You can't make them label you correctly. Even if it would be healthy for your personal mentality, they have no legal obligation to be sensitive to that, and never should, because it would make us have to be sensitive. You got to reverse it. Just like, you've just got to reverse it. We can't force them to call us something, just like I don't want to be forced to call them something. It's that simple. Tough luck. So get that in your head. There's no changing that without changing too much. So yeah. So with that in mind, you can't make someone gender you correctly legally. Just forget the idea. It's never going to happen, and it shouldn't happen, because it sets a precedent we don't want in other categories of our lives. But they also can't call you an F word and this and that legally in this country either, and that's a good thing. See how that works? But you can't call them one either, right? You can't call them anything either. That's fair. So, on the topic of trans now, the thing that really people cling to as an argument, and we just mentioned the whole thing with minors a moment ago, is young people transitioning. Very spicy subject. And I feel like we kind of already covered it. Sorry, I'm still replying to his text. This time I'll just let it run while I reply. That is, and I've mentioned it in another video too, it is up to the parents, and the parents alone, and the law, but the parents alone, to, we'll say, govern, police, deal with anything to do with their minor and their gender identity. I don't want to use that word because I don't think it goes hand in hand with minor, but with their minor's life. Anything in their minor's life, whatever it might be, if they're a minor and they're under the age of adultship, whatever you want to call it. I know it's the age of consent, but the age of being an independent adult, if you're below that, your parents do in fact control and manage everything you do in that way. And when a parent is displaying unhealthy or unlawful management of their child, then we have government bodies and agencies that will step in and remove the child from that situation, because the parent's not capable of managing it in a healthy, safe way and stuff, right? So there's already infrastructure there for that. And yes, first of all, it is up to the parents to listen to their child who may come out and say, I feel like I'm the wrong gender, to hear that argument. As the front, before any doctors, before any medical people get involved, it is up to the parent to hear that and make a decision on that. Then, once the parent has heard that out, the child thinks they were born the wrong gender and would like to be, I would like to identify the other way, they like to dress differently, they want to be called something else. Once the parent has made that decision, and now obviously we're talking about transitioning, if the child wants to transition and the parent has given their approval, it then becomes the job of doctors. Highly trained, qualified doctors who spent years and years in medical school. And don't worry, people on the left, I know that doctors are not the most educated on trans issues. We'll get into that too. But just on the surface, it then becomes the job of the doctors to then work with the parents to further the understanding and basically the medical aspect of why this child wants to or may feel the need to, or the parent feels the need that this child should or shouldn't transition. So we have the parents who are the front line, the main point of all of this. Then we have highly trained doctors and psychologists. I'm getting a phone call. I don't need to answer that one. Then we have the psychologists and the doctors to then step in and look at it from a medical perspective, right? And then we have the law, which is the government, to offer that cushion for all of this. So the law says it's legal. The parent says it's okay. The doctors agree that there's an underlying medical condition there. For me personally, and for I'm sure most sane people, there is no further comment needed. As a matter of fact, there was never any comment needed from me as a bystander anyway. Now we could loosely argue that from that legal governmental standpoint, that involves me, because we are the people, this is our country, the laws that govern us and the government that governs us. That's our baseline for pretty much everything we do, right? So when it comes to the legality of it, we do have a say, because we are the ones who will ultimately agree or disagree with the law, and we're the ones who can take actions as a group to change those laws. So you could argue that that part involves us, but before it ever gets near us, it's up to the parent and it's up to medical professions. And as it stands in the West, in the UK, in Europe, across Europe, in America, in Canada, it is legal for a child to transition if it's deemed medically appropriate. So parents say, okay, I see there's a problem, to take them to the doctor goes, I agree, there is a medical condition. It no longer involves us at all. Period. Simple. It no longer involves us, and it never really involved us to begin with, because we set those underlying laws. And I've mentioned this in another video, whether you support Democrat or Labour, or you support Conservative, Republican, both of those parties have been in charge forever. Those two parties have constantly been in and out of power between each other, and at no point has any of them banned this or made this illegal. So you identify as a Republican or a Conservative and you think trans and LGBT stuff should be illegal, well, your government disagrees. The government you voted for, who are in America right now, the Democrats, but for the previous thing they had Republicans, and in the UK we have the Conservatives and have had them for 2 terms now. At no point in their state of power, in their stint of power, have they elected to make any of these things illegal. And that's your party. The Republicans were in power, the Conservatives are in power. They haven't chosen to make it illegal. The buck stops there. It's not illegal. Tough. You already voted them in, and they didn't make it illegal. Take it up with them. It's not illegal. The doctors say there's an underlying condition. The parents agree, and they're giving the consent for the minor. Then there's no reason whatsoever for you to ever say anything further than that. Simple. Because this is one thing that really gets me the most about a lot of the people making these arguments when it comes to transgenders in general, is that they're willing to argue with doctors. Now, say what you want, not every doctor's an angel, not every doctor's perfect, and some doctors might even be fucking morons. It doesn't take away the fact that they've done the training. They've been through the process, they've gone through medical school, they've earned their right to be called doctors. The buck stops there. You as someone who's trained in fucking engineering, of computer science, or doesn't even have a degree, have absolutely no right or precedence to be arguing with the decision of a doctor. Have an opinion, you're entitled to it, but you have no precedence, no, what's the word? I don't want to say rights again, but you have no position to take to argue with the decision of that doctor, or to say that the doctor is wrong, because you haven't been through X amount of years of medical school to be able to do that. It's tough luck. The only people who can argue with the decision of a doctor is another doctor, and that's why we go as patients to get a second opinion when we question what the first doctor said. I don't know if this doctor's right. Let me go ask another one. Let me go ask another one. I get as many opinions as I need. But I'm going to other doctors. I'm not going to Joe down the street. I'm not going to Bob the Republican and asking him. I'm going to another doctor to question the doctor. And I'm not going to listen to anybody else. They can give me their opinion, but they have absolutely no basis to argue with a doctor who knows their stuff. Yes, people on the left, doctors might be underexposed to transgender issues, but the fact remains that, yes, transgender people have existed throughout human society forever. They've always been there. So, with all that in mind, the doctors have done the training, they have the qualification. Once it's gone to a doctor and that doctor has said, I think there is an underlying medical condition, the psychologist, their mental health doctor have all looked in and said, yes, I think there's something there. Where then does your opinion factor in? Because you're not qualified as a doctor. You're not a politician or a lawmaker. You're not the parent of the child. I have a feeling, I have the thought, I have the conclusion that you might have absolutely nothing to do with this decision. And it's probably sensible that because you're not qualified, you stay out of it. If your grandma had a cancer diagnosis and then Joe Blogger of the street comes in and with a scalpel and says, let me sort her out, you gonna let him do it? You gonna let him have any input on that? You gonna let him have any involvement in your grandma's cancer treatment? Something tells me no, you're probably not. And more importantly, we've all agreed with that because it's illegal for Bob to do that. So we all agree, no, we don't want Bob stepping in and trying to doctor my bloody grandma. Just like I don't want him doctoring my brother, cousin, sister, niece, uncle, daughter, whatever, right? No, Bob, go away, go get a medical degree and then we can talk. And not just a medical degree, go get some years of experience in the field too. Get the degree, then get out there, do a couple years in the field working, then we'll talk. Then we'll consider it. And I'm still not going to let you do it in the back of your garage, mate. I mean, in America, I know that kind of thing does happen because obviously medical care is so expensive that people will do garage surgeries. But best be sure that they're still going to medical professionals to do it. They're not going to just get a random guy with a chainsaw to fucking amputate your mum's cancerous fucking leg, are they? No. So the whole conversation is what I'm trying to say is the whole debate is stupid from the start because the parents, first of all, you don't get to overwrite a parent's decision with their own child unless you're a government body in charge of doing that. Secondly, you don't get to overwrite the doctor's decision when they're the medically qualified people to make those decisions. And you also don't get to circumvent the law that says it's all legal. So it's a case closed situation. A minor going through a transition is up to the parents, the doctors, and the law, of which you have nothing to do with, and you barely have anything to do with the law. And your political party has been in charge countless times. I put my money on it because most of you are either Republican, Democrat, Labour, Conservative. Your party's been in charge countless times and they haven't made this illegal. There's your representation. They've said it's legal. Just stop. It's not your child. Now, with your own child wanting to transition, the buck stops with you. They're not even going to get to a doctor if you don't allow it. And that's the difference between you being the parent and them being the parent. You get to make that decision for your kids, for your children. You don't get to make it for anybody else's. You're entitled to an opinion, but no one is entitled to... You're entitled to your opinion, but no one has an obligation to listen to it. And that's the hardest thing for people to accept. Here's a video of me sharing my opinions. I can't make you watch this. I can't make you listen to this. You have to come here and listen to it. I can't force you to hear my opinions. I'm entitled to have it. I'm entitled to share it. I can post this on as many websites as I want, but I have no entitlement to make you listen to it. And that's the whole trans issue in a nutshell.
Beautiful.
You're not the parent. You're not the doctor. You're not the lawmaker. So what does it have to do with you? Now you're going to say, well, I think the law should change. And I've already addressed that. Yes, you do that by voting. Republicans and Conservatives have been in charge. Democrats and Labour have been in charge. Many, many times. You voted for them many, many times. They have never made the decision to make it illegal. So what? So what then? What more is there to say? I think it should change. I'm voting for a party that I think will change it. They don't change it. That's it. Case closed. There's no further comment. And that's where it boils down to. Republicans in America were in charge. Trump was in charge running it. The anti-trans people who supported him voted for him. He got in power. Transgender is still legal. We have nothing more to discuss, right? So, yeah, when it comes to the whole young people transitioning and blah, 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 and everyone's got a bloody opinion, everyone's got an arsehole, it doesn't matter. It's up to the parents, it's up to the doctor, it's up to the lawmakers, and it's up to the child too. But of course, being a minor, they're very limited on the things they're allowed to decide for themselves. So really, it's up to the parent. If a parent says, I want my child to transition and and the doctors have spoke to the child, did all the assessments, all the stuff, and they've agreed, yes, this child, has gender dysphoria. I am diagnosed with them with gender dysphoria, and I think the treatment for them is a transition. Case closed. Simple. So, silly conversation to even be having, because it's up to the parents. And for the adults that choose to transition now, there's even less for you to say. I mean, it's the same. The only difference between the minor and the adult is that the adult doesn't need parental consent to do it. That's the only difference. So it's the same conversation. If a doctor has assessed an individual, they have said this person has gender dysphoria, and I'm diagnosing with that, and I'm recommending the treatment of a transition to help them, to help them to treat that gender dysphoria. Then that's between the patient and the doctor and the lawmakers, not you. It'll never be about you. You speak with your voice. You've already had your party in charge multiple times, and the stuff is still legal. What are you complaining about? Because this is where it gets political now. What exactly is it you want? You're a Republican, because let's face it, a lot of the people who are against transgender stuff do tend to be conservatives and right-wing. So I'm not just singling them out as the bad guys in the story. It's just that a lot of the people you see being anti-LGBT in general are generally conservative, right-leaning people. So you're right-leaning. You've had your government, the right-wing government, in charge multiple times, and the stuff that you're against is still legal. But but your party's been in charge. What exactly then are you expecting to happen? Please write it in the comments if you've made it this far, of course. Please write it in the comments. Get in touch with me. I would love to hear that once we've gotten to that point and you're still against something aggressively and your government's been in charge and hasn't changed that thing, but you're still against it despite your government not changing it. What then exactly are you expecting to happen? And again, this is the thing I think people just miss the most. Republicans were in charge. In the UK, the Conservatives are still in charge. They've been in for 2 terms now. The issues you're raising haven't changed. So then what? Right? So please do comment and tell me where it is. Please answer that question for me. I would love to know the answer. What exactly are you expecting to happen next when your party's been in charge and hasn't changed those things? So this video's gone a bit longer than I intended, so I won't go on for much longer now. I feel like I've covered some of the key issues. And in Qatar, we already know a lot of these footballers, they're engaged in relationships, LGBT plus, trans, all sorts. We know a lot of these media people are, and we know the only reason they've gone there to play is for the checks. It's disgusting. They should have stood up against it. The players should have refused to play. The team should have refused to go. The media should have chose to ignore it, and it honestly it's kind of rotten that it's still happening in such an intolerant country. And not only are they intolerant, I'm not just saying that, they're coming out as people from that country and that culture, telling us to respect their intolerance as a culture. And that's what did he say? He said, Western culture isn't the dominating culture on the planet. We don't all have to listen to Western culture. You need to be tolerant of our culture. Well, guess what, buddy? Western culture is a tolerant culture, and us tolerating you is Western culture. Because if we were like you, we would just be banning you. Imagine if we held an event in the UK and banned all Muslims from attending. Do I need to even make an example of, do I need to give an example of what would happen in that situation? No, I don't. We all know what would happen. They'd be kicking off. It'd be a travesty. It'd be a massive, big deal. But the Qataris can ban Jewish people, Judaism in general, and they still get to hold their event and people still attend it. You can't say that we're not a tolerant culture. Western culture is tolerant of some stuff that we shouldn't be tolerant of. So I think that speaks for itself. It's disgusting that the event even continued. It's only because people are getting big paychecks. And if you're watching it, you're supporting it in any way, shame on you. Unless, of course, you yourself agree with the Qataris and you think banning Jewish people's okay, you think banning LGBT people's okay, and executing them and all this stuff. If you think it's okay to be sensitive to a rainbow flag, then I understand why you're still supporting the Qataris, fair enough. But to everybody else, if you're watching that and you've got a kid, a sister, a brother, an uncle, anybody who's LGBT or Jewish, or any of the other ridiculous things they've banned, then you're gross. You're gross for supporting it. And not just those issues. Never mind the fucking slave labour. How are you supporting something that even went anywhere near slave labour? I mean, that alone should have been enough. But it's more disgusting when you realise they're banning things that if we did the same thing to like Islam or to Qataris, people would be getting murdered in the streets over it. People get murdered. A guy got beheaded in France because he drew a picture by the same people that are, telling us to be tolerant of them while they're being intolerant of other things. So I know it's not everybody. I know that there's liberal Muslims, there's left-leaning Muslims. I don't know how, because I feel like if, I don't want to get in, I'm not that kind of person. I accept everybody, But I do, and then this is something you can comment on, I wonder how you can be a Muslim and then also be left-wing. Because if you're a Muslim and you follow in the Quran, which says you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do that, but then you do those things but still call yourself a Muslim, I wonder, why are you even calling yourself a Muslim at that point? I do wonder that sometimes, but that also does apply to a lot of other religions too, so it's not just them. But I just don't think you can be religious and then also left when your religion is against all the things that the left believes in. So I don't know. Comment below if you can answer that. I don't mean to sound intolerant. I'm only intolerant of intolerance. When people are getting executed for being gay, when people are being banned from events for being trans, when people are fucking dying because of these things, that's when I get intolerant. But otherwise, I don't care about what anybody believes in. But it does beg the question, how can you be a liberal while holding those views? Or how can you be this while that, So comment below if you can answer that. I'm very interested to hear some of the arguments. Anyway, this video's gone on way longer than it was meant to, so I'm going to stop here. This is my introduction to the LGBT topic, but we will be coming back to this as we discuss things unfolding in the world, news and stuff, because it's a big topic and it affects a lot of people, and it affects a lot of people in our lives, our neighbours, our friends, our family, and sometimes ourselves. So stay tuned. I'm SpookyLith. This was my introductory rant onto LGBT issues, trans issues and the like. And I look forward to seeing you at the next video. You won't see me, but I'll see you. Catch you on the next one. I'm SpookyLith. Thank you for watching. Take care and just chill, relax, because I think the real, what's the word? The real thing, because I can't think of the right word, when it comes to trans and LGBT issues, the real crux of it, the real point is, why does another adult's or another person's lifestyle choices, the way they dress, who they choose to be, bother you so much? How, I walk down the street, I see all types of people, I'm happy, I don't care, I'm not paying attention to what Joe's doing. But for some people, it's like, whatever Joe's doing seems to affect them so much, and it's like, why? Let Joe be Joe. Joe's Joe, you're you. In your head, in the privacy of your home, call him a knob end, call him a bell end, say his hair look ridiculous, whatever. But why does it bother you so much? Why, oh why does it bother you so much? And if you can answer that, go right ahead in the comments. I'll be looking forward to it. In the meantime, till the next time, I am SpookyLith. Catch you later.